Hi, I'm Nicole Perriella, Ayurvedic health coach and Hatha yoga teacher. Today I interview Sean McCormick, the owner of Float Seattle. Listen to our conversation as we dive deep into what floating is really all about. I just had my first experience here a few days ago and it blew my mind, so I'm really excited to be having this interview today, so thank you so much.
I'm happy to share.
Great. So can you tell our viewers, what is floating?
Yeah, so floating is the practice of suspending yourself in a saltwater solution completely deprived of sensory input. So that is literally floating on top of salty water in the dark, in the quiet. So in most cases you can float with the light on or with the light off. You can have music on, you can have music off. But the real point is to get a total mind and body rest and recuperation period in an hour.
And that's absolutely what I felt. I felt like the world was on pause when I was in there. Nothing could bother me or disturb me. I was like suspended in time.
Yeah.
Do you hear that a lot?
Yeah. So what happens when you get into a deeply rested state, you increase the occurrence of a theta brainwave state, which is a meditative state that you're not really asleep and you're not really awake, you're just sort of in the flow, just sort of in the zone. Mm-hmm. When that happens is, during that time, you forget about really everything. You kind of forget about your body, you forget about the things that were bothering you before you came in, and time seems to just like flash by. So an hour for a lot of people, even on their first try, can just seem like 10 or 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that a lot of my viewers are really interested in meditation or they already meditate. How can floating help them take it to the next level?
So I've meditated since I was 12 years old, and I've practiced mindfulness and transcendental meditation and various breathing techniques. And what I've found is that it's an excellent foundation. It's a great starting point. If you've, like a lot of people have, gotten ready, sat on your pillow, like, light some incense, like work on your breath, and then like a crow lands outside your window and totally disrupts your entire flow. That, you can't control for that. You can't control for a phone ringing, for people coming in and out, for cars driving by. Here, your external world is totally closed off, and there's nothing to bother you. So it's kind of a shortcut to a meditation state, and it's an excellent reference point. So if you start here, if you start with a float, and you get to that point where you're like, wow, that really was relaxing. It really did feel like I got to that blissful meditative state, which sounds, but it's true. It's absolutely real. That this can be then your sort of vantage point to recall what that feels like and take that into your seated meditation practice.
And I've actually been doing that this week. When I've been meditating in the morning, I try to envision how I felt here and block everything out in the same way. And it was a good memory to call on and bring into my seated meditation.
Definitely. You're right on. I mean, and that's really common. We hear that all the time, that this has either enhanced someone's meditation practice or they felt like getting to a meditative state is easier once they have this reference point.
Wow, that's
Cool
incredible.
you're doing that.
Yeah, it was natural. It felt so good.
That's cool.
So I was surprised that there's only 10 inches of water.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's all that you need, really. So there's 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate. Like my mom has taken Epsom salt baths every single night for as long as I can remember. It's nice to soak your feet in Epsom salt. Well, there's 1,000, literally that times 1,000 in here, and that creates ultimate buoyancy, like the Dead Sea. You see pictures of like people sitting in the Dead Sea reading the newspaper. Mm-hmm. This is the same as that. The buoyancy and the salinity is so salty that you don't need much more than 10 inches of water to be buoyant. I mean, it could be 6 inches of water for most people too. We've got Seahawks that weigh 340 pounds floating in the same tank that you floated in, that we're standing in front of. I mean, there doesn't need to be a whole bunch of extra water. It's just a little bit you need.
Wow. So if someone's struggling with an illness or a health problem, or they want to lose weight, how can floating help them achieve their health goals?
There's a couple of different reasons. One is the physiological benefits that you get, which is the absorption of the magnesium, which decreases inflammation, increases blood flow, boosts your immunity. The magnesium fuels your mitochondria, so at the cellular level, you're actually functioning more efficiently.
Wow.
So there's like the hard science and the details of physiology, not to mention the absolute relaxation that you get, which anytime you relax, it's going to boost your mood, it's going to boost your dopamine, and it's going to decrease your cortisol and your adrenaline, which we all have to do, like we all really need it. Then there's the mental aspect of it, which is in a lot of ways even more powerful. You know, we don't give ourselves an opportunity to relax, and relaxing is not drinking 3 glasses of wine, watching America's Got Talent. That's not relaxation. It's fine, but it's not true relaxation. And when you are in a regular flotation practice and you're using it as a means to really unplug, to really step out of your normal autonomic, going to work, paying bills, making dinner, doing stuff, like when you actually take some time to yourself, it boosts your immunity, boosts your mood, it allows you to recover faster, and so there are sort of a symphony between the physical and the mental and emotional, and in a lot of ways, for me personally, and a lot of people that are members with us, a spiritual aspect too, because you're getting in touch with yourself, because you're getting in touch with oneness in the universe, because it's the same up there as it is inside of us.
Wow, that's powerful.
Well, and I felt comfortable saying that to you. I don't tell that to everybody, but I feel like that would make sense for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of your journey and your story, can you take us back in time to your first float?
Yeah.
And what your experience was like and how that led you to opening your own float studio?
Yeah, so I floated now, it's been about 8 years ago, and I did it on my lunch break. I was at a desk job, and I took my lunch break, and I drove from Seattle to Bellevue to float at a guy's house.
Oh, wow.
Who had a float tank in his basement. A yoga instructor, a massage therapist, really interesting guy, really cool guy, opened up his house for people to come in and get some real healing. So I had very little pretense and expectation. I just was curious because I was in a regular meditation practice and I heard that this was akin to meditation, which it totally is. And my first float felt like it went by in about 10 minutes. I got relaxed really quickly. I did some of my breathing techniques that I do in my seated practice, and then I went out of body.
Wow.
I had an out-of-body experience, which I had several times before involuntarily. Just in my meditation, I would just sort of like find myself floating above myself, and that happened really quickly in my first float, and it was such a powerful event for me that it really sort of changed my view on things. It changed me to the core. It changed what I thought about consciousness and what I thought about the meaning of life and all of these big, giant questions.
Wow.
Like having that intense experience, like now I know, changed my path. It took me 4 or 5, it took me 6 years to think about starting a float center after that. But looking back, that was a pretty pivotal day.
I can imagine. It
Yeah.
sounds like it. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So what would you say for people that are a little bit scared of trying this out? And can you show us here
Sure.
the tank?
So for the people who have fears about it, the number one objection is claustrophobia. And so totally reasonable, totally cool. There's a couple of things that I tell people. Number one, once you get in and get relaxed and take a few breaths and feel that feeling of buoyancy and feel your back stretch out in the salt water and feel your neck elongate and like your blood start to flow into places in your limbs and so forth, it feels so good that all of that tension that you had and expectation for being freaked out kind of goes away.
Just when you said that, I was like,
I thought,
yeah, it feels so good just remembering that that's exactly what it feels like.
And that's really, really common. In fact, that's the number one objection people have. Is like, I just don't want to be in a closed-in box. So for that, you can float with the light on. You can float with music. You know, we can choose music for you. You can bring in your own music. It's not the full experience. Obviously, it's not full sensory deprivation, but it's still amazing for you. And want to take a peek, we can bring the camera over here. This is the ocean float room. As you can see, it's really tall.
Right.
And it's really wide. So if you can peek in there, you can see that it's really roomy. Of course, we've got bright lights on it, but it's so roomy that you realize, oh, that's not scary. Some of the other float tanks that we have here in Float Seattle are smaller, but after you've been through it one time, then your fears pretty much go away. And then in Bellevue, we're opening in Bellevue, downtown Bellevue, in 2 weeks. We call it Float Bellevue. We're going to have more elaborate tanks that people refer to as pods, which are rounded. There's light changing colors inside. They're really sleek and beautiful, really roomy. So, you know, like if there are things in your brain that are keeping you from trying something out of your comfort zone, like come check it out. Like just come by and ask if you can come look at the tank. You know, like it's not spooky once you really get what's going on.
Well, yeah, and something that was reassuring for me is that no one's locking this door. Like you can open the door and get out anytime you want.
Right. I mean,
it's just closed.
It just does that.
Yeah.
And you can pull it back and open it anytime.
Right. So that was reassuring, and to know I had my own space with the shower. It's like, okay, this is my own little sanctuary.
It's absolutely private. You know, you can lock the door behind you. It's your time. It's your place. Nobody's gonna come in. You're right. You can shower, get in, you can jump into the tank and have the time to yourself. Yeah, there's nobody forcing you to keep the door open. If you want to open the door, open the door. All of those variables, you're in control of the whole thing.
Right. Well, it was funny because I asked the attendant, I said, well, how do I know when the time's up? And he said, oh, well, we play some music. So I said, okay, but I had the earplugs in, so a lot of people don't realize you put earplugs in, and my head was underwater, and so the time went by so fast, and then I started to hear something, and I was like, is that music, or am I imagining things? So I sat up and took the earplugs out, and was like, oh, that's the music, I'm done. And I shared with you earlier that I was like a little woozy and like so relaxed and so zen that it just kind of, that feeling followed me the rest of the day, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's super common too. I mean, that increase in dopamine, even if you're eating clean and exercising and thinking good thoughts and have a lot of love in your life, you still have toxins in your body, and you still can't control for environmental toxins. And so sometimes what happens is when you're absorbing Epsom salt, your body's detoxifying. And for some people who are more sensitive, which I kind of assume that you are, you can feel a little bit lightheaded, and it's not from anything other than the fact that you've just sort of flushed your system a little bit. And also that supine position on your back is different for people. You know, if you sleep on your side, if you don't like floating in a pool or in the ocean or whatever, that can be a little bit different too. But that feeling of like, oh, I come out, I feel really loose, and my back is limber, and I feel really smiley. Like, we see that. That's the best part of this job.
I bet.
Like seeing people leave just like, oh, like,
on a cloud.
Like, no, you forgot all your stuff. Come back. Like, oh, your wallet. Like, take this with you.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I noticed when my arms were up, my back naturally did some cracking and some realigning and adjusting. And I was like, well, what's my other option? And the other option was this, because your arms are going to float. And so I was like, well, that's not going to work. So this one just felt so good.
I think that's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do behind their heads. You can, some people that like cross their arms behind their back. And everybody has different shapes. You know, everybody's built differently. And so there's different postures that I think people prefer.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing in the world like that feeling when you are totally open, you're getting traction on your spine, you know, the combination of that weightlessness is just phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And
it's my pleasure.
how can people get a hold of you, or where can they find you?
They can call me on my phone.
Perfect.
You can email me at Sean, SEAN, @floatseattle.com.
Okay.
There's a ton of information on the website. There's videos and blog entries that go back 1.5 years, 2 years. We have a YouTube channel. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter, @FloatSeattle. It's really easy to get a ton of information just by going that way. And, you know, I'll just say that if you're thinking about it, for all of your people that are listening and watching and that go to you for advice, you should try this. This time and time again is the thing that is the tipping point that people have been looking for. So give it a try.
I couldn't agree more. So if you haven't tried floating yet, definitely check it out, and thanks so much for watching.